Hey savvy people, it's SavvyNik here. Sorry about the delay here. Was having a few issues with YouTube and finally got it resolved. So we will continue on with the review today. Glad to see some familiar faces here. I see KTNXD already accidentally timed out someone. We'll have to fix that later. I'm not exactly sure how to go through and fix that. So here on my screen, you might see what we were working on last week. That's because I had to switch computers. Hopefully, well, first off, let me just go ahead and change up the appearance here. I want this in full screen mode. Hopefully everyone can see that. Last time there was a suggestion to go ahead and put the command prompt over here on the right hand side. I went ahead and played around with this for quite a while and I really didn't like it. What I'll be doing is just closing and opening this terminal as we're programming here. So the very first thing I wanted to do is actually create a new file. I had all this set up, but clearly ran into some issues. So let me see if I can. How's everyone doing? All right, so I'm going to go to File, New File, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new, let me stub out main real quick here. And we'll just do a return 0, make sure that this can all compile. And today I plan on talking about the Iostream header objects. And I figured we can explore those a little bit in more depth. I know we talked about them in the previous, I think it was the previous episode. And before that, we had the operators. And I think we'll dive into operators a little bit more. It'd be very advantageous to explain some more operators and how they function. I think that'd be very nice to look at. Sorry, this is a little bit all over the place. I had this all planned out and then all of a sudden got jacked up with that stream connection deal. So let me finish this out. I'm going to do include. We're going to need the Iostream header, and I'm just going to make my life easier by using namespace std. I'm going to save this as, let's see. I'm going to call it formatting.cpp. And let's go ahead, save this, and make sure I can run it in terminal. So I believe this is in my documents folder. No, it's not. Where have I been saving this? Let's see. Saving this in documents CPP. My bad. CD documents CPP. And once I get this compiled, I'll go ahead and check the chat so I can answer any questions that we have here. All right, so G++, we're using formatting today. We're going to output that as formatting as well. Make sure that can compile. Of course, I forgot my semicolon here. Save that. And let's make sure to run. Great. All right. At this point, we are able to compile. So good. So going back to the chat real quick. Sorry about this. All right. So looks like we have Swollenberg back. Sorry about that. Is C++ important? Well, it depends on how you look at it. C++, yes, it is important. It's quite a stable programming language, and it's used in such things as general programming and even hardware programming. So, of course, it depends on what type of programming you're doing, whether it's important or not. It's also very, very quick. So, great, SavvyNik, Spectrum. Great, good to hear. I learned C a little, it seems. Good. I'm doing well, Spectrum. Thanks for asking. What do we got? All right. So it looks like we're a little bit Swolenberg thinks he needs a cut for my salary, huh? Oh man. Thanks for finding that semicolon mistake. All right. So the very first thing I want to talk about is well, let's talk about Iostream a little bit. So last time I mentioned that we have this cout object where we can print characters to the screen. So characters, and then we have this end line which just pretties things up for us. And this object here allows us to go ahead and print things to the screen. Well, in the last video, I think we went ahead and learned how to take a couple values in from the user. So I got int value 1, int value 2. And with these values here, I mean, now we've declared a couple variables and we can change them however we want. One thing I do want to mention when we're defining variables and data types here, if you want to go ahead and include these on the same line, you can. That way you don't have to keep redefining it as an integer. Anything in here can be defined as an integer together. And that's simply done by putting a colon here. So if I did value 1 and then value 2, that's equivalent to doing int value 1, int value 2. This is something I wanted to mention because I'll probably be using it later in the program. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these two since we have them defined. We'll go ahead and save that, and we're going to use our cout object to display these two values. And since we talked about the various different kinds of operators that we had, so we have, let's say, the multiplication operator with this asterisk here. What I'm doing here is printing out value 1, multiplying it by value, well, not, first I'm taking value 1, multiplying it by value 2, and then all of that's going to be printed out using the cout object to the console. So what we would expect right now, well, is nothing because we haven't set value 1 or value 2 equal to anything. We could, however, go ahead and ask the user of the program what they want to go ahead and put into value 1 and into value 2 this way. So this syn object is another object out of the Iostream header, which is included in the standard library. And with the syn, we talked about how we can put user entered values into certain variables. So using this, let's just make sure one more thing. We'll cout and ask the user to please put in 2 values, just so it's apparent in our program here. And let's go ahead and do that. Before we compile, let me check out the chat. Jose says, "You're teaching like I wish it would have been explained in college semester last year." Thanks, man. No problem. Glad to have you here. Keshley, hello. Luch, nice to see you. Hi there. Glad to see you on the stream today. There's quite a few familiar faces here today. Thanks for everyone who's joining in. And if you're new and stopping by, to keep up with the series and support the channel, please subscribe below and hit that notification bell for more Linux and programming videos. Also, make sure to go ahead and smash that like button for me. It really does help me out. Helps introduce more people to the stream as well as the channel. KTNXD is working hard over here. His fingers hurt already. All right, so let's go ahead and compile this real quick. So if you do Control J, that'll actually bring up a terminal inside of our favorite IDE here, Visual Studio Code. So now I'm asked to put in 2 values. I'm just going to use 4 and 8. So 8 times 4 is 32. Awesome. We came out with the right value. We've checked ourselves. Great. So we got a very simple program here that takes two values in. We ask the user, hey, please give us those values. We put those values from the console into first value 1. After they hit the carriage return or enter, then we ask them for a second value, value 2. We had 8 times 4, and we got 32 out of it, and that's what we spit out at the user using cout. This is known as character out, and this is known as character in, and it just reads and writes to the console. All right, so something that I'd like to mention about using the Iostream library is that there is a way to format the console. And in order to format it, we can actually set some flags based on how we want to format things. So this is just something nice to know about. And the way we could do this is we can use the cout object, and then we can actually call flags on it. So we have this flags function here. And inside flags, let me try formatting it in a specific way. This is nice to know about because let's say you only wanted to deal with hexadecimals or the hexadecimal representation of certain numbers. Well, instead of having to go through and use the cout object and then converting every single value to hex, this is a nice way to go ahead and convert those values across the board for any console output. Hex is just one of the examples I'm going to show. There's a lot of different examples that can be used, and I'll show you some of the other flags that can be used here. So again, we have cout and this new function we're introducing flags. And in here we can introduce flags. The first one I want to introduce is if we do ios : and we do hex, that should convert our values to hex. So what the readout that I get now should be in a hexadecimal format. So let's see if that does happen. Let me see. Instead of doing a multiplication, I'll do an addition instead. Arif said something here. I am using GVim for C++. I'm using C++ as the main language for competitive programming. Nice. Very cool. Can I use C++ for software development, or should I go with dynamic language like Python? Sure, you can go, I mean, C++ is a general programming language. You can use it for development, especially for desktop applications or anything that has heavy interaction with the operating system. Most operating systems are based off of C, and C++ is a subset of C. So sure, you can use it for general programming. It's absolutely fine. There's plenty of graphics libraries, a ton of libraries. C++ has been around for 40 years or so. So yeah, absolutely. But to be frank, it might be easier to go ahead and use Python. It depends on the type of programming and what you're trying to create. So hopefully that answers your question there. Would you make only Q&A stream, and if yes, when? So Luchazar, that's a great question. I can do a question and answer stream. If yes, when? I'm not sure. It'd probably be next Saturday I could do something like that. Or maybe tomorrow. Not sure. Got to look at my schedule. But when I do those occasionally, I'll just go ahead and play a game, and then everyone can go ahead and ask me questions. So maybe we play Valorant before long, and we can have a Q&A like you're asking. All right, so back to this. I'm adding two values instead of multiplying them now. And we're going to see if we can get the hex value outputted to us. This is just something neat to know about. It's not really shown. So in a lot of classes or books necessarily, it is getting a little bit further into the functions of the cout object, but I think it's nice to know. So now that we have the flag set, let's go ahead and recompile our program and run it. This time I'm going to put in two values, 8 and 4, and now we see a C. So 8 and 4 is 12, and 12 in hexadecimal representation is C. So now you can see how easy it is to transform the various different representations of values using a console and the console or the character out object. So there's very many flags available to us, and I'd like to actually show you a couple of them if I can. Let me see if I can bring one up real quick. All right. All right, hopefully we can see this all. But here's where it calls for C++ IO flags. And the various different flags available and what they mean. So we have bool alpha, so that turns Boolean values in the Iostream using words like true or false. I really enjoy using this one personally because I don't necessarily like reading whenever I'm using a bool. I like knowing that it's a true or false and that it is in fact a Boolean data type. Otherwise, it gives you a 0 or 1, and that's hard to distinguish between an integer and a Boolean. So this is something nice when you're testing bool alpha. I'll go ahead and actually try using that one here so we can check that out. And then you have, well, decimal, fixed, hexadecimal, internal, left, right, octal, display, scientific, different types of bases that you can show, and well, a few more. You even have uppercase if you wanted to get everything in uppercase. So this is, again, something nice to know about, that the console output can be formatted with certain flags using the cout object. All right, Jose has a question here. Earlier, you opened up terminal in VS Code. Could you show how to open that again? And what can you do with it that you couldn't do when coding on the project itself, as you've been doing just now? So Jose, great question. Thanks for asking. So the simplest way is just to press Control J. Control J will toggle your terminal on and off here inside of Visual Studio Code. Now this isn't to be confused with the terminal that you would open up in your normal Linux operating system, but it's something that's written here natively in Visual Studio Code. Of course, you can use all your Linux various commands. You can see it's running bash. So with that being said, Control J. You can also go up here to terminal and hit new terminal if you wanted another terminal. All right, and hopefully that answers that question. And you can pretty much interact with this however you normally interact with your system using any other terminal. So yeah, you can even program in here if you wanted to. Let's say I wanted to use Vim and open up a file. You can use Vim. You can use any command that you would normally use in a console. All right. Continuing on, let's go ahead and use one more thing in here. So we had this, we had the output formatted as a hexadecimal, but what if we went ahead and also threw on a base so we can really tell that it's a hexadecimal? So normally hexadecimal numbers are represented like this, OX and then some value, so maybe FF or AA or 00, but they have this prefix right here, this 0x, to clearly tell, hey, this is a hexadecimal formatted value. a representation of a value. All right, so how do we do that? Well, there's something iOS here, and it's called show base. So let's try this flag and see how that changes our value. We'll use the exact same numbers as before. And let me rerun. So I'm going to compile, do formatting, put my 8 in, put my 4 in. And now I see OXC. All right, so that's just another neat little deal that we can use. And there is two different functions here. There's a cout set f, which means set flag. I don't like using this one. It's pretty much the same thing here, setting flags this way or setting flags this other way. I don't like doing this one because you're limited to setting 2 flags at a time here with set f. But with flags, you can put in as many as you want using the pipe operator. So let's say I wanted to add a 3rd flag, and that 3rd flag was the iOS bool alpha. Spelled that wrong. Alpha. Well, now I have 3 different flags set. Forgot a colon. 3 different flags set. Whereas in here, I can only set the first 2 flags, and then I'd have to recall this function, setf. So I don't like using this one, but be aware that it does exist. And I'm going to save this. And now I talked about bool alpha a moment ago. So how exactly do we use this thing? So the first thing I need to do is actually define a bool value, and I'm going to call it result. And this time I'm going to say, we'll just put it at the end here, and then I'll set bool result equal to true. Let's see how our Boolean value changes when it gets displayed in the console versus the standard, how it works in the standard situation. So if I do cout and I type in my result, so spit out my variable result, and I'll put an end line here. Let's go ahead and run this. Before we've seen that once we print out a result that's a Boolean, it usually comes back 0 or 1. But what's going to happen this time? Let's check it out. Recompile, run, still have to put my values in, and this time it says true. This is very nice, at least in my opinion, because what if we didn't have this is bool alpha here, and we reran. Got to put some numbers in. We can see since we have it hexadecimally formatted, it actually displays a 1 in hexadecimal. So, but normally it would show a 0 or a 1 if I took out some of these other flags. Let's just see what that would look like. I was actually expecting a 0 or 1. But I forgot that I had it formatted. So here, 1. But see, I can't tell the difference between my integers up here and this value 1. Is this an integer? Is it a Boolean? Is it a, what is it? Well, what's that called? It's called, I think, bool alpha. Yes, bool alpha helps you distinguish all that. Something very nice to use, something nice to know about. As Swollenberg says, yes, I call it a pipe just because the type of character, but it actually represents a bitwise OR, and it bitwise ORs all those flags together so I can set the proper bits, and that actually distinguishes in that function what to actually use. That's a little bit convoluted, but we'll get into that eventually. Just for now, know you use a pipe in between to go ahead and use the different types of functions. If you're new and stopping in, make sure to go ahead and smash that like button for me. It really does help me out. Also, make sure to subscribe below. Hit the notification bell for more Linux and programming videos, as well as following the C++ series for beginners, learning about the concepts in C++. We do a review, or we try to do a review every week, and kind of get more in depth with some of the stuff that we've used and kind of reuse some of the stuff that we've learned. So one thing I think I missed during the operator section was something called the compound assignment operator. What that is just a fancy name, and I can actually show you what it does a little easier here. Let's go ahead and erase some of this. Let's erase up to here. KT and XD, can you ban me? I don't know. Let's not try though. I don't think you could. All right. For this one, we have this new, we'll call it the, it's plus equals. So there's plus equals, minus equals, divide equals, times equals. This is known, these are actually known as the compound assignment operators. And this, it just helps, really it's shorthand for doing something. And it'd be, let's say we used value 1, and if we did a plus equals value 2, this would actually take value 1 plus value 2 and store it into value 1. So this is something nice to know, meaning it's shorthand like this. Value 1 is equal to value 1 plus value 2. So let me add a couple more values here. Well, let's go ahead and actually test this out. So I'm going to do cout. And line. And this applies to every single one of these. Plus equals, minus equals. It does the same exact thing, except you can just replace this. So if I do, again, value 1 plus equals value 2, that's equivalent to value 1 is equal to value 1 plus value 2. And then if you did minus equals, again, value 1 minus value 2 is all put back into value 1. So we'll give this a shot real quick, see what kind of a value we get. That's not how I wanted to do that, so let me do value 1 plus equals value 2, and then I'll display value 1 so we can actually see what happens to value 1. All right, and we'll keep using 8 and 4, I think, as our example. And I'm going to run this. 8. Oh. Did I accidentally? Yes, I did. We need to ask the user for value 2 as well. I erased that on accident. Yeah, we got a little bit of garbage here, as you can tell, and that's because nothing was assigned to value 2. All right, so we have 8 plus 4 is equal to 12. And we just did that, so that we did it before as well by, adding value 1 and value 2 together and just displaying that in the console. But we can also do it here and save it into value 1. as I did here. So I said value 1 plus equals value 2, and that returned a 12 as well. So all it did was it took value 1, which we gave it as 8, then it took value 2, added it to 8, so that's 12, and then it saved it into value 1, so value 1 now became 12. So it's just another neat little thing to know about operators, and that you can use this compounding assignment operator in the future if you ever are adding something to the current value that you're actually using, and then you're looking for some result. If you have any programming or Linux questions, feel free to go ahead and ask those in the chat. Try keeping them specific about some of the basic concepts that we've learned in the past. Anybody from the viewers interested in web development, or is it just me? We do have quite a few people actually on our Discord channel who are interested in web development. You could always feel free to go ahead and join our Discord server if you want. I do have one. It's in the description below. Arif, I'm your subscriber since you uploaded the video on Ubuntu 20.04. Yeah, it's been quite a little bit now. Thanks for subscribing there, Arif. That means a lot to me. All right. So now that we've learned a little bit about the compound assignment operator, how we can format our console, let's move on a little bit to pre-incrementing and post-incrementing. So I briefly touched on this in the operators video, but I didn't really speak on it too much. I didn't want it to really confuse anybody because there really was an example that we could do at the time that would really do it justice. So do it justice of explaining how it actually works. So let's try doing that here instead. So first, let's distinguish the two. So if we had, let me actually get rid of all of this so we can focus on this. If we had an integer and we wanted to pre-increment that integer, let's call it int value. There's two ways of doing it. There's plus plus value, and then there's value plus plus. So what's the difference here? This one is called a pre-increment, and then this is called a post-increment. Now you might be asking what the differences are. Both of these increment the value in here by 1, but they do it in two different ways. So let's go ahead and show how these two differ from each other. All right. That being said, let's do int I, and we'll set it equal to something. I'll just set it equal to 1. And then I'll define a second integer, j. Before I move on, I should speak about this too. So earlier I had shown that you can define multiple integers by simply putting commas here. So value 1, value 1, value 2, value 3. So these are all integers. Value 3, value 2, value 1. Well, what did I do here? I actually assigned one of those integers a initial value. So I could also do this, right? Integer value 1, value 2, value 3, and I could set value 3 equal to something. And all this means is value 1 has something assigned initially, value 3 has something assigned initially, but value 2 does not. Let's make sure this works. And it did, it did compile, so that's a great thing, and it did run, so no problem found in the compiler side of things. So we can say that it is good. Let's see. So continuing on, now that we understand what I did here, And down here, we can actually put these values to use. Here I'm going to say j is equal to plus plus I. So I'm using the pre-increment value, sorry, the pre-increment operator. And now we want to make sure and see how the plus plus I affected both I and j. So j is what we're setting, what we're assigning plus plus I. Sorry, we're assigning plus plus I to j. So if we do that, what would we expect here? Does anyone know what the value, sorry, not value, I was saying value, started typing it out of nowhere, what I and what, let's see, put a little space here, and what j are going to be with the post increment operator. While I am talking about that, or letting you think about that, let me read here. AJ has a question. Do you think C++ is still relevant when most of the market is dominated by Python and Java? Absolutely. I think it's still relevant, and it's going to remain relevant for decades to come, in my opinion, just because there's so many programs that are already based on C++, and there's a lot of embedded systems out there based on C++. Those aren't going anywhere. It's a very stable language, and it doesn't have the extra layer of complexity where you have in Python and Java being a runtime. And so you really add some overhead in having that extra layer between talking to the actual operating system and using the kernel to command, let's say, hardware. Hardware, it'd be a pretty bad idea to go ahead and use Python and Java to control hardware. That's where C and even C++ shine. It doesn't have that extra layer in between the runtime. So it's really used for different things. Python and Java, you can get let's say business grade programs running very quickly and efficiently without any time stringency or calls to the operating system. But if you have something like I don't know, you might have a miniature robot, or you're working with let's say an Arduino is what most people understand as an embedded device, you wouldn't program with Java or Python. And if you did, you'd probably have wrappers of C and C++ in order to actually run that hardware. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I went into it a little bit in depth there. So Arif has a guess. It's 2. Well, let's check and see if that guess is correct. And you're right. 2 and 2. Good job. So what happened here? I was 1. J wasn't anything. It was uninitialized. And then we did plus plus I. So if we do plus plus I, plus plus means to increment your value. So if we did plus plus 1, or increment 1 by 1, we would expect J to be 2. And of course, I was 2, J was 2. All right. Now, that held true. Good job, Arif. You had that right. Thanks for supplying the answer. Let's go ahead and do the second type here. So now, instead of plus plus I, I'm going to do I plus plus. So can anyone guess on this one what the value will be for J? I'll let you go ahead and guess that. Also, if you're new and stopping in to watch this stream today, make sure to go ahead and subscribe below so you can follow the C++ beginners tutorial for basic concepts here in C++. That way you can join in our reviews here on the weekends as I stream. Also, make sure to go ahead and smash that like button right now if you haven't already. Some of you listening to me in the background, it'd be great if you could smash it for me. All right, so let's go ahead and continue this on. All right, we have one guess here. AJ says I is going to be equal to 2 and J is going to be equal to 1. Awesome. Let's check that theory out. Let me clear this out so we can see it just a little better. Raise this up. And, oh, sorry. Don't look at that. G++ formatting, I needed to make sure to compile before I run. And you're absolutely right. So 2 and 1. So, great job there, Arif and AJ. I think, Arif, you had that right. You just had the I and J backwards. But so we have C out, we're displaying I and J. This time we have 2 and 1, whereas before we had 2 and 2. So why is this the case? J is currently equal to 1, and I is equal to 2. The reason being is when you have a plus plus increment, which is the post increment operator, you are actually incrementing this after assigning it. So I've assigned my value. My value was 1. So I set J equal to 1. Then I post increment, meaning then I actually increment the value of I. So I goes up by 1. So that's why I was 2 and J was 1. Whereas with the pre-increment operator, the plus plus I, so let's just write that out. In this scenario, we went ahead and actually first incremented I, then we assigned J. And that's why it came out to 2. It's really nice to know this distinction. Some people get a little confused on that. That's why I didn't want to cover it way too much on the operators video. That one went on long enough as is, so I didn't really want to mess with it at that point. But hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Thanks for AJ and RF contributing there. Great job on the answering. Hopefully everyone has been enjoying the C++ beginners series. I plan on continuing. There's quite a bit to cover in C++. I'm trying to do at least 2 videos a week on it and 1 review video, but we'll see how that goes. Maybe I can ramp it up a little bit. And I recently did a poll, and the poll came back that the length was just fine on the videos, so I hope that is the case for you. I don't want to spend too much time on one subject, one concept of the C++ subject, so I'm glad to hear that I haven't been doing that. Art of Magic, welcome to the stream. You want to learn C++ help you? Well, start with the C++ beginner series here. And with that being said, let me actually go ahead and post the let me go ahead and post the playlist here in chat. Also, if anyone has any questions related to what we've covered here in this review and or in the last couple videos that were released, or actually any of the videos that have been released up until now, go ahead and post them in the chat if you want, and I will see if I can't answer them for you. All right, let's make sure hopefully I can post this. Art of Magic, make sure to go ahead and check that out. You can follow along on Linux and or Windows. I guess one other brief thing I wanted to talk about is this less than operator here with cout. This is also known well, this is just really an overloaded operator. It is used for one of the bitwise functions as well, so don't get those confused. I know some people do. It's like, why are we doing bitwise operations here? But what we need to understand is here it just pretty much acts as a concatenation, and all concatenation means is that it groups things together here, and then, well, just puts it towards the end of the last value and puts it all together, and then it can print it out to the screen. So that's how I get away with printing multiple things here. All I did was I did an I, and then I concatenated a space, and then I concatenated a J at the end of that, and then I concatenated an N line at the end of that. And that's what came out of this whole deal here. We have I with a space, with a J, with an N line, and I and J are various different variables that we went ahead and assigned. Art of Magic, my laptop is an i5 6th generation with 8 gigs of RAM, 256 SSD. Is that good for coding? Absolutely. You don't need a super computer in order to program. It's actually fairly simple. The compilation is what takes the longest with very big programs, but your laptop is absolutely fine, especially while you're starting out and learning things. You don't expect to be compiling millions of lines of code. You know, you're making simple programs that take seconds to compile, and especially with a laptop like that, you'll be just fine. Just make sure you find yourself a nice little environment to go ahead and program in and understand how to compile things, which we go over in the series itself. So make sure to go ahead and check out that playlist that I went ahead and supplied. And I think that's about it, unless anyone has any questions. I'll go ahead and take those real quick in chat. Otherwise, if you have any other questions, comments, or suggestions after this stream is over here, please make sure to go ahead and post them in the comments section below. I think we did enough review for today. I covered all the little topics I wanted to cover. I'm getting excited because we're going to be covering flow control soon, functions soon, and that will help us create larger and better programs. And it also is going to help us, you know, with the structure of our programs. And again, also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for future videos and make sure to like the video. Catch me in a great community on Discord. At this point, since we don't have any more questions, I'll go ahead and end the stream. Thanks so much for tagging in today. And we do have a couple questions. It seems like they just popped up. What is your Instagram? Don't have an Instagram. You can get on Discord to talk with us if you want. That's in the description below. And where am I from? What country? I am from, let's say I'm from the United States. At least I live in the United States now. Or if that helps. Otherwise, all right. Well, thanks again for stopping by. And I really appreciate everyone who's following the series. We'll keep doing these as this series goes on. I'll catch you in another video. Thanks for watching.